Welcome back to Business and Politics. We're talking to Director General Teo Panga. Sir, the recent thing that came out from your mother agency, DTI, was the Export Development Plan of the Philippines, which is an interesting policy. You're at the center of that, if I understand your role correctly. But maybe can you talk about what specific things you're doing to help realize or implement that new plan?
Okay. So, DTI, the DTI Secretary sits in the PESA board as chairman. And so we draw guidance from the DTI plans, including the Export Development Plan, which was recently launched. In fact, we were part of that launching. And we support, of course, the plan of the Secretary in doubling our export volume. And I think that is something doable. And PESA can play a big role in achieving that objective because currently, you know, the locators from PESA account for about 56% of the total country's annual exports of goods and commodities. And that is huge.
Wow.
56% for commodities and then 51% of service exports. So if only we're able to attract more investors, that will surely contribute to the attainment of that goal in terms of increasing our export volume.
Yeah. Now, you know, we wrote an editorial about that actually, and we praised the plan. But we also mentioned that the challenge there, of course, is that the Philippines has to make or grow things that it can export, right? Now, is there a role there for PESA? Because some of your ecozones are manufacturing, some of them are agro-industrial,
Yes.
right? But have you identified what kind of things are suitable to make in the Philippines, what are suitable to grow in the Philippines, that can be exported maybe to the RCEP or maybe even beyond? As you mentioned, you know, we have the GSP with Europe, maybe the US will soon renew our GSP with the United States. But what are the suitable things that we can make or grow in the Philippines that you are looking at?
Okay, so
export.
Earlier I mentioned about the types of investments that we're trying to attract into the ecozones in the Philippines. So if we talk about efficiency-seeking investments, these are more into vertical integration. So meaning they bring in their suppliers, their subcontractors, they create their own ecosystem in the economic zone. So they don't really rely much on the economy, although we're trying to integrate the domestic suppliers of goods and services to be part of the ecozone value chain.
I see. So the parts and...
yes.
Okay.
So meaning, especially on electronics, they can very well compete because the biggest contribution of PESA in this production of goods and services is really our Filipino talents.
Okay.
So that's on the efficiency-seeking investments. Now, on resource-seeking investments, we have several. These are mostly into agro-industrial. So do you know that we are the biggest producer of canned pineapple, the likes of Del Monte, Dole, even Cargill.
Right.
So as long as we have the lands to offer them, the crops that they can grow in these lands, and they can mobilize the farmers to be part of their supply chain, then we can be competitive as a base for exports for these products.
Right. No, but maybe just to clarify the question, are you looking at a specific, for example, crops that are suitable? I think in our editorial we mentioned that there was an interesting increase in demand for ube, for instance, in North America.
Yes.
Of course, the Secretary mentioned the demand for durian in China. So are you know, besides those two, are there any things that, you know, it would be natural for the Philippines to grow? I mean, bamboo, for instance, maybe another one. But it seems to be a number of things.
Yes.
But have you guys identified maybe this one is the lowest hanging fruit? Let's do durian first, or let's do bamboo first, or something else. Is there something that you are looking at in particular over the other opportunities that also exist?
Well, yes. So we're also getting support from the DA on which crops to prioritize. But if we look at the locators now that are now operating in the economic zones, so we have the likes of those into cassava, into the ones that make into chocolate.
Cacao. Yeah.
So we now have that kind of locator.
That's interesting.
And, yes, and then the traditional strengths in mangoes, even dried mangoes, those into bananas and pineapples.
Coffee, maybe?
Coffee, yes, we're
Yeah.
exporting that.
Yeah.
So if there's a potential for supply and exports of durian, for example, so
Right.
we welcome this kind of activity. And we
Yeah.
want them hosted in the economic zone because with that, they can access also the ecosystem, like
Okay.
into packaging,
Okay.
logistics supply chain. So we can help a lot in making them more viable, competing in the global market.
I see. Wow. So with durian, is there, are there any contracts that are, in advanced stages of negotiations? Are we about to open a durian plantation? You mentioned cassava is also very interesting.
Well, yes.
There's a lot of countries in the region that use cassava for noodles and
Right.
bread also
Right.
as flour.
Right.
That's an interesting prospect.
Right. So the only challenge is they have to physically locate in the economic zone
I
to
see.
set up their facilities. Like in the case of Kabalen and
Okay.
even Mamasitas, they're into condiments. So
Okay.
they had to set up their facilities so they can do all the processing inside the economic zone
I
and
see.
engage in exports. But in many cases, we have domestic producers that they don't want to be uprooted anymore.
Okay.
So unless they will declare their area into an economic zone, only then we can assume jurisdiction and make them part of the
And give them
PESA
all of the
ecosystem.
incentives
Yes.
and support.
Yes. Otherwise, the other option is on-site. They can also buy for BOI registration, and they can still enjoy the same incentives being given by PESA.
I see. But as I understand it, the requirement is about 25 hectares to qualify for or to apply
Yes.
to be an eco zone. But there are, as you said, some exceptions to it.
Yes.
It could be vertical, as you said, right?
Yes, the minimum area is actually 25 hectares, but
Okay.
that will apply more to manufacturing and agro-processing.
I see.
But we have relaxed the rules. For instance, if you're a locator, developer at the same time, we said that we can reduce from 25 to 5 hectares.
Okay.
If you're into tourism, you can qualify for a 5-hectare property.
Okay.
If it's an IT park, under the CREATE rules now, the
Okay.
minimum lot area is 1 hectare if it's outside Metro Manila.
Okay.
If it's in Metro Manila, the minimum area is 5,000 square meters.
Okay. So and if they are interested, where do they go? Do they go to your website? Should they go to your office personally? What's the best
Well,
approach?
yes, we do road shows, we do investment promotions together with RDCs, NEDA, DTI. And so if they have a property that they want to apply with PESA, they can do online application. They can also meet with us so we can ask our staff to guide them, hurdle the application process.
Yeah.
And then they submit it for PESA board approval, and then it goes through another layer, which is the presidential proclamation.
Yeah. Which leads me to my next point, because one of the challenges that the Philippines faces, of course, is the bureaucracy, right? And that's something I think you have been working on as well in PESA to make doing business in the Philippines easier. How are we doing? I mean, what progress have we made, and what needs to be attended to more?
Well, yes. So we're doing a lot to further improve our ease of doing business. And in PESA, we know that the best way to go with that is through adoption of more digitalization. So when we implemented our electronic import permit and export declaration system, we were actually ahead of the Bureau of Customs. So we're introducing more automation. At the height of the pandemic, that was when we rolled out our e-payment gateway so that the companies did not physically transact, go to the office just to pay and apply their applications. And this year, we'll be rolling out our what we call electronic LOAS so that all permits now will now be electronic. So I think we're among the very first few in government to have ventured into not just cashless but even paperless transactions. So this means a lot to our investors. Anything that will improve their experience transacting with us, speed up the process, because to them, speed is critical, especially when they compete in the global market.
Right. One of the things that I'm sure you know this, that one of the things that challenges people like you who are promoting the Philippines is, of course, energy cost. That's not something we hear. Is that as serious as we understand it? I mean, are you hearing about that particular issue like we have, or are there other things that concern investors more?
Well, yes, because there is this study made that I think Philippines is second to Japan, or probably third behind Singapore and Japan, with the highest cost of power. But one upside about PESA is that we are a franchising authority. So we invite investors to set up, embed their facilities, because what we tell them is we have the captive concession.
Okay.
We have the ready off-takers. We give them the incentives. They just have to deal with PESA for all the permitting. And somehow we're able to significantly reduce cost of power. So that is one upside that we have in PESA. And then we also promote renewable energy sources. So even locator companies, they can make use of their rooftops to produce their own energy out of solar. And then we're also promoting tri-generation. We have become a test bed for technologies.
I see.
The first district cooling in the Philippines was set up in the PESA zone.
Which one?
The district cooling.
District cooling, okay.
Yeah, so locators are able to save much on air conditioning.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yes, so we have that. The first waste-to-energy facility in the Philippines is in a PESA zone. We met with the German investor that introduced anaerobic process, and they link up with the likes of Del Monte and Dole, and Dole, and they're able to convert fruit waste into energy as well. And then on wastewater treatment, there is this Danish technology provider that introduced Sembrain, which is a nanofiltration. They deployed it in Samsung. From 25 pesos cost of treatment, they were able to reduce it to 1 peso per cubic meter. And so we welcome technology providers that can provide us support and bring down cost of doing business in the economic zones for our investors.
You mentioned solar. Is that something that's already implemented? Do you have net metering, for example, in some of your eco zones? Or?
Well, we have in the private economic zones, we have companies that are participants in the net metering. But what we want, especially in the public economic zones, we want a mini grid setup.
I see.
Where instead of allowing for exports of surplus energy, we want it contained and used inside the economic zone.
I see.
So on that end, we're even entertaining this concept of this peer-to-peer trading. It's being done already in Australia and Singapore. The idea is if we have solar generators with surplus power, they can dispatch it through this portal where we have several off-takers among our locators that will now engage with them directly. So it's like your mini spot trading inside the economic zone. So all these measures, including energy efficiency, those that conduct audit to look into whether they're employing high-efficiency motors. We have one company in Cebu that will now put up an LNG terminal, so that will now replace fossil-based energy, and we can provide gas at the same time. So this can bring down significantly cost of utilities inside the economic zone.
Very, very interesting. Sir, we'll have to take another quick break. This is Business and Politics. We're talking to DG Teo Panga. We'll be right back.